Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I discuss movies and television shows. Today I want to talk about Subservience. It's a sci-fi thriller about a man hiring an artificial nanny to look after his family while his wife is in the hospital waiting for a transplant. Will Honley and April Maguire wrote the story and S.K. Dale directed the film. Megan Fox stars as the robot nanny, Alice. Michele Morrone plays the lead, Nick, and Madeline Zima plays his sick wife, Maggie. Let's jump right into it. The story is well written and tight. It explores the idea of robots integrating into our everyday lives and some of the unintended consequences that can occur due to human error. It starts with a fairly mundane situation and turns it into a nightmare scenario that leaves Nick and Maggie fighting to survive. The movie does a fantastic job of exploring the situation and fleshing out all of its characters while keeping things exciting. There's a bit of sex, tension, and a finale that goes hard. It's a simple story that sets out a few goals and accomplishes all of them before the end. They did leave themselves open for a sequel, but the concept seems incredibly exciting. I won't spoil it, but I hope they get the funding for it. Cast-wise, this film only has a few performances. There's Nick and his wife Maggie, his children, his coworkers, and a few robots. The human characters spend most of their time angry at the robots for replacing them and taking out the worst of their desires on them. There's a real tension here between them that's palpable. Nick's children aren't much of a focus, but we do see them spend a little bit of time bonding with Alice, and they help show how competent she is at caretaking. Alice, played by Megan Fox, is an emotionless robot that does whatever you need. Fox's performance is unnerving to say the least. She's constantly maintaining rigid eye lines, moving in robotic ways, and the way she talks is devoid of emotion. Fox did a great job with the role, creating a terrifying persona that lacked malice. At first, you would think that's necessary for a villain to be entertaining, but somehow, it's more interesting that she isn't violently angry at her victims. She just dispatches them with a cold, careless demeanor. Madeline Zima as Maggie plays a sick woman who's struggling to maintain her courage in the face of death. We see her suffering in the hospital and disheartened watching a robot replace her in her family's lives. As things progress, she's the first to see something wrong with Alice and ends up fighting hard to save her family. Zima does a fantastic job with the emotional aspects of the character and gives great fear and pain reactions. Michele Morrone plays a grieving husband stressed out from trying to balance work and taking care of 2 kids. When Alice shows up in his life, he's initially a bit suspicious of her, but slowly grows to trust her. Morrone plays the emotional journey in a tragic way, really driving home how lonely and stressed out Nick is. He gets to do a lot of reaction work, a bit of action, and he paints a dark and tragic picture with his performance. The visual journey is fairly basic and only uses a few locations but gets the story across in a clear and concise manner. It spends most of the time flip-flopping back and forth between Nick's home and the hospital where Maggie is. Most of the focus is on Alice taking care of Nick and his family. Along the way, we see a ton of little moments where Nick and Maggie interfere with Alice's programming in negative ways, and later we see how those moments spiral out into bigger problems. In the third act, there's a little bit of horror, action, and one big crash. The killer robot comes home to roost, and they let her go out with a dramatic flair. None of it is overly exceptional, but there's some tension, the kills are decently impactful, and there's a good sense of danger. Sound-wise, there's a few basic instrumental tracks used to add a bit of tension and a bit of sadness. They're quiet, don't interfere with the storytelling at all, but also don't bring much to the table. There's also one original song, but it's a bit too loud and doesn't really add anything to the scene it's in. It's just a background piece that one of the characters was listening to. Personally, I think Subservience is a decent film. It does what it set out to do and is fairly entertaining. The acting is well done, the action and horror are set up properly, and the story gives you a lot to think about in terms of robots and their usage. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch, and it does run into a lot of cliches and tropes, but it's entertaining enough to be worth watching. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.